Let's start the recording. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Welcome to the session, Future-Proofing Your Career in Languages or else. I'm sure you can use some of the insights today to apply to pretty much anything that you have your mind set on doing. So just a couple of words on why you're here today and why I'm here to talk to you about languages. My name is Giulia Tarditi. My pronouns are she, her. And I've built what I consider a fulfilling career in the field of languages. My latest adventure is as head of localization for a fintech company, Revolut. Maybe some of you have a Revolut account. I hope so. And I'm also wearing another hat, which is I'm part of the European Commission's Language Industry Expert Group. And this is the capacity in which I'm here today. Now, words matter as the title of today, but let's talk numbers for a minute. 15 is the number of years I've been working in localization. 8 are the hats I've worn. I've been a copywriter, a translator, a project manager, a product manager, a tribe lead, an ops manager, a head of function. And in total, between in-house and advisory roles, I've helped over 60 brands localize their content in more than 45 language combinations. I speak 6 languages, and 100% is the rate of situation in which I have imposter syndrome when there's something expected of me. So no, you're not alone. I'm 40 plus years, even though they say 40s is the new 30s, I've stopped counting. And I tend to do things in pairs. So I've been married twice to the same guy, but it's a long story. And I've had 2 kids in 1 pregnancy. But the number you need to walk away with today is 0, which is we should have 0 worries about our future if we want to have a career in languages. And we're going to see why. And when people ask me, where should I start to sort of draft a career for myself? What should I do? I always say, independently of whether you work in languages or not, that you need to find a place where what you like doing and what you know how to do and what the world needs actually meet. But I want to dispel a couple of myths here. Very few people are passionate about what they do. So I think we need to talk about enjoyment, right? Passion, it actually comes from the Greek pathos, which means suffering. So let's talk about enjoyment, something that you enjoy doing. There is no such thing of being good at something, right? Or bad at something. So surely there is innate talent and predispositions, but practice and hard work will beat innate talent every time. So let's start talking about what we're good at and move the narrative onto another level, which is what am I willing to invest time in? And I think investment here is the key word, because if you invest wisely based on this triangle and the sweet spot, you're going to see hefty returns. So what sort of roles are out there in 2024 for people like us, people with language skills? Many. At the first spot, we see customer support. Demand is high for multilingual customer support specialists, especially in e-commerce and in the SaaS sector, so software as a service, but also retail. Then you've got business development. Maybe you never thought that you'd move on to business development after a career in languages, but you absolutely can, because companies with a global reach, particularly in tech and consulting, they look for people with language skills to create these global partnerships across regions. Or education. Lots of demand in education, mainly in international schools, universities, and e-learning platforms, not just to translate material, but also to create the curricula. Content management. Although roles in content management may not directly mention translation skills, content is content. So you may absolutely transfer your skills for a successful career in content management. And then there's translation industry roles, right? So dedicated translation jobs like translators and interpreters in legal, tech, etc. Here are the most advertised jobs of 2024. We still see a lot of vacancies for translators, right? We still see a lot of vacancies for localization PM, localization specialist, machine translation reviewer, interpreters, localization engineers. This is one of the newest ones. It's been a few years. Project coordination, vendor management, and transcreation. Transcreation is a field that I would definitely invest more time in if I was at the beginning of my career, because the fact that you can operate creative shifts will put you in a way of a different spot compared to AI. Than if you can't, because straightforward translation is going to be taken care of in a way. Now, what are the fastest growing new entries that mention translation? Interestingly, they all mention data and data sets in relation to translation. You've got machine learning engineers, localization data analysts, NLP engineers, localization specialists, data scientists, translation data manager, data annotators or data labelers. Data annotator and data labelers being one of the fastest growing entries of all. And all of these things are things that you can absolutely learn how to do. If you teach yourself, you do some microlearning, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but also if you're happy to learn on the job, you should not stop yourself from applying to a role just because it's called this way. And so because there's no standards in titles, go through the job descriptions, look for keywords, try and understand whether this is something that you would know how to do or you would happy to and able to learn how to do. If you already tick and can do all of the things in the job description, that's probably too late for that one anyways. Industry-wise, who's hiring? You got technology and software at the first spot. You got pharmaceutical and healthcare. Lots of translation there. You got legal services, media and entertainment, education and learning, tourism, hospitality, but also government and public affairs, and then financial services and marketing. Now, healthcare, technology, and legal services have more consistent needs. So these are the industries where I would look if I was to be looking for a job right now, because they have compliance and specialized content requirements. While sectors like media, retail, for example, they have demand peaks around certain moments in the season, right? Or around certain projects. So maybe you will see that there's not a flat line or a consistent line coming from this industry for jobs, but you can keep looking, and there's definitely going to be ups and downs during the year. But change is here. So these are the fastest growing entries, but there will be more. There will be more roles that we don't yet know what to call. So I want to leave you with the stats, and 15% is the percentage of new job postings every year that involves titles we've never seen before. Never seen before. So we need to get comfortable. One is because, you know, they tend to spend a lot of time fantasizing. They probably come up with titles that you've never seen. So look at the job description, but also we need to keep moving. We need to keep up with the times. We need to be flexible, and we need to keep sort of putting ourselves in a place where we're happy to go and try something new, that it will make good use of our skills. But very important, we need to be comfortable with data. Sometimes as linguists we're not, because we see humanities as studies that take us away from like the field of numbers and the field of data. You know, I haven't studied engineering or something. That doesn't stop you from wanting to understand data. Data as a keyword is in the vast majority of the new job titles that relates to language, especially in the fastest growing. And I'm sure you've looked at data sets and what they do in machine learning in universities, but data set is a structured collection of data that is used to train, to validate, to test machine learning models. It's basically the learning material for the algorithms, right? And as a as a linguist, what you can do is create high quality, well annotated data sets that are critical for the success of a machine learning model, because the quality, the quantity, and the diversity of the data that is being put into these models that directly affects their performance and how well they do their jobs. So invest time in learning some of this. We're going to see it in the next 7 steps to future-proof your career in languages. Okay? Number 1, you got to know how to interview. There's too much emphasis being put on CVs. Making your CVs pretty, that's important. Obviously, that's a prerequisite. The Europass website actually has fantastic templates. I do mine with it. But your CV is only going to get you a ticket to the ride. If you want to get the job, you've got to interview, and common sense is not going to cut it. Practice the STAR interview technique. It's a structured approach to answer interview questions. Situation, what the situation demanded, what the task I had to do was, what actions did I take, and what results that produced. It basically allows you to give concise answers, focused answers. It gives the interview a clear picture of how you handle a challenge. And then the second thing you got to do is you got to research the company that you're interviewing with, not just because you want to look like you know what they do, but you want to understand how it relates to your skill set, to the goal that you have in your career right now, because you need to create a narrative around motivation. They will always ask you, what drove you to apply? And the best way to answer that is to find the sweet spot where what you can do, what you can bring to the table, and what the company does coincide. And then you got to ask insightful questions. So at the end of the interview, ask the questions that reflect your interest in contribution. Ask about current projects. Ask about how they measure success. How do they know if their initiatives are successful? It shows that you're proactive and that you're interested in making an impact. Impact is key. Second, you've got to get some beginner-friendly understanding of how large language models work and how to use them. Okay, whether you have like more of a European or an American type of learning. Europeans, they tend to learn a lot of theory first and then do the doing. And then the Americans, they get stuck in the doing. And then when they get stuck because they can't go on, then they would enable themselves with more learning. It's up to you. I would start with a book. I'm European in the end, the 100-page machine learning book by Andrei Burkov, because it definitely applies to the machine learning that happens in the field of translation and languages. And we can all master 100 pages. Come on, there's no excuse not to read this. Then you've got practical courses on Coursera, on edX. You also can browse Medium. I recommend you a Medium subscription. I get so much love and learning from my Medium subscription. There's blog articles on Gen AI. They tend to be rich in insightful tips. You can go on Reddit. You can use the subreddits like the one I posted there. And then there are YouTube channels that can help you, like 3 Blue, 1 Brown, or 2-minute papers. They tend to have very concise microlearning on topics related to machine learning that you can get done and dusted with in between your studies or in between your job and the gym. And every time that you find a term that you don't understand, you can ask a large language model to tell you more about it. There's actually a prompt. I don't know if you want to take a picture, but there's actually a prompt that you can use. I want to learn more about whatever. Identify and share the most important 20% of learnings from this topic to help me understand 80% of it. I really recommend it. It works for me every single time. Then you need to look beyond translation. Translation is just preparation. In the end, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. In the end, it's all about content, right? Who says that you should focus only on translation jobs? Make yours a career in languages. Be open to it. Translation is just one of the operations we do with content. It's good to be a specialist in it, but it doesn't mean that you need to limit yourself. The two silos, they've been silos for a long time, between who produces the content and who actually translates it. They're going to, the line is going to blur more and more. Then you need to be comfortable with two things. One is working remotely, whether you're going to be working remotely or your colleagues or your stakeholders, they're not going to be in the office with you every single time. That sail is shipped. So what we need to do is be comfortable with it. It requires a lot of motivation, time management. Time and money are very similar, but unlike money, you cannot get more time even if you grind. So we must have a few tricks up our sleeve to use it wisely. Research time management. Put it into Gen AI, ask him what to do about it. Then you need to be comfortable with speed. Companies want speed. You need to be comfortable with making decisions fast, even though you don't have all of the data. And you need to be able to sift through noise and go straight to what matters. You need to be able to set goals for yourself and be comfortable with not doing things to perfection. Practice microlearning. It actually fits around your schedule. I do it with audio, but there's, some people prefer to do it with videos, some others, they prefer to do it with reading. Short sessions, maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you can fit it in your day. There's less cognitive load, is more modular and more personalizable. It needs to be combined with like a macro train, like the one you've had at uni. But it's absolutely fabulous to get your skills up. And then you need to invest in creativity, because we need to be flexible to embrace change, because change takes us in different directions. I recommend you watch a TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson. He was a British educationalist and a visionary who advised governments on education in the arts. And he actually believed that we cannot prepare you for jobs that we have absolutely no idea what they're going to look like. But what you can do to prepare yourself is you can educate yourself to be creative, because the creativity is the tool that allows you to ride the waves and navigate the choppy waters of a changing job market, of a continuously changing job market. And then you need to be curious. Presence is power. Curiosity is power. There's more things you don't know than the things you know. But in order to know these things, you need to be present. You need to be mindful. Not having your mind full, okay? You need to let things touch you, but for that to happen, you need to focus. I don't know if you're familiar with the state of flow, but in 1961, the Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he looked for a term that described the state of happiness, and he called it flow. It's basically a state of concentration or complete absorption with the activity that you're doing. And it's also known as being in the zone. Oh, I'm in the zone. I really got in the zone today. I could concentrate. We are losing this ability to concentrate. You got to practice it, because your career is going to benefit from it a lot. And it also means that you need to choose your challenges. Something too challenging leads to burnout. Something not enough challenging leads to bore out. Okay. And then just learning is not linear. You need to be comfortable with it. It will take you to different places, and you need to let that happen. I studied cross-cultural comms, and it gave me a solid foundation on which to build a career in a related, although not fully overlapping field. And on these foundations, I kept building my very own personal learning temple. Each brick I laid on those foundations was because of a gap that I came to realize I had in my skill set. Something standing between me now and where I wanted to be in the future. Or because it was called for by the adventure that I was tackling at that present moment. Some of these learning chapters may seem unrelated, or they may seem obvious to you. You know how to manage your own time, or everyone knows how to manage people. Now, I don't know if you ate fortune cookies much. I am a fan of fortune cookies, but there's a quote that I find often that is, no job is so simple that it cannot be done wrong. So know your gaps and fill them. It doesn't matter that you move on from a field and move on to another. You can take things with you from that learning as long as you're present. And you need to be comfortable with feedback. Seek feedback. What can I do better? Be comfortable with it. There's a book that I recommend. It's called Thanks for the Feedback. Because you can sift, you basically, sometimes feedback is given in not a very pleasant way. But what you can do is divide the two things, the way something has been said to you from what's been said. There's almost always something you can learn in a piece of feedback. You need to seek it. So change is here. Change is a word, right? We need to be comfortable with change because unfortunately it's happening. This is a Woody Allen quote. Reality may suck, but it's still the best place to eat a good steak. So we need to be rooted in reality. This is the world we need to live in. Is it fair? Is it not that the world is changing around us so quickly and so much? I don't know, but we can take the driving seat. And this is really the thing that I wanted to leave you with. It's a quote from a children's book that I read with my kids. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it should be recommended to adults as well. And one thing that really sticks with me is that we can't control the world and what happens, right? But one of life's greatest freedoms is how we react to things, how we react to what happens. What's happening is the world around us for language professionals is changing, but we can take the driving seat and drive the change. That's everything from me. Do we have questions?
Okay, we have one question in the chat. Susanna says, I often hear working on data sets for AI training feels like destroying the need for yourself as a translator in the long run. What do you think about this?
I don't know where you've heard that, whether it's from someone who was frustrated or maybe was in a role where they were not being treated fairly, or where they had to go through lots and lots of stuff in less of the time required to do it. I wouldn't say it destroys you. Nothing that you go through work-wise will destroy you. You can choose to step away from it if that's not for you. And that's why I say you need to look beyond translation. To me, there's something to be learned from doing very hands-on work on data and annotation. Now, whether you then decide it's for you or not, you would have mastered that skill and you would know what it is next time you're in the room. And then you can maybe go for a job where you're just a stakeholder in the process, if that's not for you, but with the awareness of what that process entails. And you need it, because otherwise you're not going to have a voice at the table.
Then another question from Martin. What is your preferred way to microlearn? Do you use some apps or do you carve up the subjects yourself?
I covered the subject myself. Again, I think it goes back to when I was saying, let things touch you. You enter a bookstore, go to the sort of enablement sessions where you got all of the self-help books, browse through titles, see what catches your attention. There's an app called Headway. There's actually more than that app. I'm not here to advertise Headway, but it's actually, it creates these short summaries of books, not narrative books, but like self-help, etc. And you can go through more and more. There's a featured selection, so like most popular, etc. But then from there, maybe you hear about something and then you hear about something, and then you can curate your own list of books. Again, microlearning is effective only when it's targeted at your gaps and targeted at your goals. Okay, so they don't need to be overlapping with what you do, because otherwise, you can't keep learning more and more just about languages. That's not the way to go. But what you can do is ensure they relate to your challenge. I do audio. I do audio when I walk on the, in the park, or when I run on the treadmill, or when I do errands in the house.
And then another question. Can you give an example of a new skill, why you learned it, how and what you learned, and how you use it now, plus which languages you use to produce professional podcasts? So,
which language I use, or?
Yes, which languages you use?
Yeah. So one of the best ones I spent time learning has been time management, and the ability to do focus work. Like I said, we're losing the ability to do focus work also because of the attention-seeking apps, etc., that sort of fight for our attentions. We get the phone to check the time, and then we see a message and we put it down and we realize we haven't actually checked the time. Time management is key. Do a time boot camp. Track for a week how much you spend what you spend your time on. How many minutes you need to load the dishwasher. How many minutes you need to brush your teeth in the morning. How many minutes you need to do X, Y, and Z at work. And then try and divide your time. Time is finite. You can only have 24 hours. Try and divide it into half-hour units and see how many minutes you need to go through the units. And then you can take stuff off, whether it's browsing Instagram that you don't really need, or whether it's something that you can combine into two things that you do at once. I'm not a fan of multitasking, but maybe you can load the dishwasher and do some microlearning at the same time. Time management has been game-changing for me. And now I structure my time really, really well. And I'm probably more attentive with my time than with my cash. I use English when I do podcast, or like when I record, because it's the language that I'm most comfortable with. Even though I'm Italian, I've only ever worked in the UK for the majority of my career. But I've, audio-wise, I've worked with a number of languages, mostly European ones.
And then last question, do you have an example of a language-related job you do that you enjoy, and how you found it and learned the skills and so on?
I write poetry as a pastime. I like poetry. Is it related to languages? To me, it is. And it gives me the gift of being sharp and synthetic, because in poetry you need to take away everything that's not needed to tell something that you want to tell, or to have an emotion that you want to convey. So it does help me, and then it helps me at work. It helps me coach linguists into creating translations or transcreations that are straight to the point, that drive that emotion wave.
I think we don't have any other questions. Thank you very much again.
Thank you for your time, and stay in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn. If anyone has any questions after today, I'm happy to reply anytime. Okay? Go on, guys.